Alrighty, let's take a peek. So you said that you've been playing some Valla lately, and on BoE you've been doing pretty good. So let's take a peek. Yeah, Windblades against Double Blind is gonna be rough. But other than that, I wouldn't say that they're gonna auto win or anything, because like he still has good race and they still have pretty annoying team fights. But overall, your team comp is a little bit better than theirs. I think the hardest part is that you just need to be a little cautious of the damage you take and make sure that you're using your abilities in the right things. Because the thing about Q build is it's all bursty, but then you kind of run out of stuff until 16 when you get Manticore, so you can't really throw anything at Murden except for auto attacks. You can safely hit him with auto attacks as much as you want to. You're also using a lot of abilities immediately. Do you see how they clear the lane up really quickly and there's no real need to push? So you don't really need to use that many abilities. I mean, a couple abilities here and there is not too bad as long as like a globe's going to get you back up. But you see how you're already down almost half your mana? And you haven't really done anything, you know? You want to try to save your abilities for when like someone gets low enough to where you can combo them. I mean, you don't really get good combos until level 7, but still. You just want to keep your... And also, the faster you clear these minion waves, the harder it is to keep Hatred going, because if you clear all the minions, then there's nothing safe for you to attack to keep Hatred, so just be careful. You almost don't want to. Like, do you see how right now, if you want to keep Hatred, you have to take a tower shot? But if you didn't kill those minions, then you wouldn't need to take a tower shot. When doing this camp, you never really want to do this when the enemies aren't distracted by something or when you don't have any sort of advantage against the enemies, because when you start doing this camp, you're going to be using resources on a camp, and then you're not going to be using resources on the enemies. Again, you don't need to fire very often against the minions, just once or twice to keep your stacks going. Same thing on the camp, you don't need to force it. If the enemies rotate, you can go for the camp. Like, I only see 3 enemies right now, but it's also a Nova, so she could be anywhere. That's actually a great time to use abilities. Someone gets low enough, you auto attack them until they get low enough. You walk up, you combo them. Q, E, W, auto attack. It's usually enough to finish them. In this case, it wasn't, but that's fine. You did what you could. I would actually start doing this camp a little early. My main reason for it is if you leave a little early to go do this camp, then you have time to clear it on your own. And if your team doesn't end up showing up, then you just clear it right on time. If your team does show up, then you didn't risk anything. The problem is when no one gets this camp on time, then the enemies get a huge advantage that you guys don't. Okay, it's good that you're asking for assistance. Puncturing Arrow, this is usually the time you pick this talent up, and it's a great time to start working on the enemies. But I still focus on racing number 1, and then Puncturing Arrow stacks number 2. She's just getting vision. Clones don't count for quest stacks, just keep that in mind. Q's really all you need if you're really racing, you do Q, W. But if you're just trying to do like a safe race, just use Q's to stay mana efficient. This is actually really good stutter stepping, to be completely honest. Like, auto attack, take a step back, auto attack, take a step back. Like, that was really solid. You don't really need to hit a fountain here, but you can. A lot of times people will pre-tap at full health so they can get so that they can take some damage in a fight. In this case, you don't really... I mean, there you go. You took a little bit of damage. He used some abilities, and you're healing through all of his damage. That's all fine. Lily's dead. See, this is the biggest challenge, is like telling your team, hey, let's regroup, is very important. You can't just like, you can't keep trickling in. You see how your team's trickling in again, and they're going in without you, and you're down in another area. You need to be with your team. You kind of deal with the enemies first, and then you race, right? You only race by yourself when the enemies are stalling. Like when your team's stalling and the enemies are stalling, you'll race. But otherwise, you should be with your team for the most part. I mean, hitting halftime is pretty nice because now you can race. There's not much that your team can do as far as this. So your team might stall here while you race. But overall, you want to just focus on this is where you use all your abilities when you're actually just hard racing like this. You use everything. And don't forget that Vault also increases the damage of your next basic attack. So you can increase it by 60% on your next basic attack. So you can also Vault even if you don't have the reset. Like if you need to clear it fast, because the big part about this objective is this shield gives your Immortal a ranged attack. So you want to do whatever you can to keep that shield up for as long as possible. So the bigger the shield, the better. It's actually a great spot to just hit him with a couple things. Get the reset as fast as possible so that you can start doing, yeah, so you can start doing that. So you can start getting double stacks. Once you finish those stacks, like your goal right now should be finishing this stack so that the next race you're fully stacked up and you have all of the benefits. The 1 extra bounce, the extra damage, and all that damage is enhanced by the Monster Hunter. So your goal right now, get Q stacks. Q, E, Q. You missed that Q. Try to Q to the more to the side, not backwards. Or sorry, try to E more to the side, not backwards if you're trying to just add more damage. It's not a big deal. Like, all these things are really small. The biggest thing is, like, if your team goes alone for any reason. They're going to go up to Greymane because he's up there. I mean, you might have some friends right here. Oh, you do have friends in here. I also think you need to kind of look at your cues and you need to go, like, where are the enemies going? And instead of trying to, like, always worry about leading the shots or shooting exactly where they are, try to reposition yourself before you fire the cue to where it's easier to land. So I try to explain this with a lot of, like, other skill shots. Is there's this issue where like, let me see if I can find this really quick so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So you were right here, right? And the enemies could run anywhere. They were running in this direction, right? I'll add a little arrow up there. When you fire off your Q, there's this way, 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 right? Those are all possible options that you can fire your Q at, and the majority of these are going to miss, right? Imagine that all of these are misses except for one. If you're the best person at leading shots, you'll always land it, but even the best person at leading shots can be juked. You start running this way, they fire the Q, you take a step back. And then if you led the shot, it's gone. If you aimed exactly where they were, it's gone. Only if you aimed at a place that, like, you kind of see what I'm saying? But if you would have waited to fire your Q until this moment, where you're right here, and then you have the enemies who are up here, and you fire off your Q, then where can they go? Here, here, and here. Do you see how there's like only a couple options of where they can move when they're in that tight corner? Then it's easy for you to go in, fire off a Q in this direction, then fire off a vault that's going to get you up to here, and then you fire off another Q in this direction. It's so much easier when you know exactly where the people are going, because they're going to be stuck in a spot that they can't go anywhere else. So just keep that in mind whenever you're trying to land your Qs. Again, your goal is to get Q stacks right now. So Murden, for example, is just standing there. Walk up, use a Q, walk away. Yep, dash in, one more Q, nice. I mean, didn't hit, but still nice. Again, this is where the throws happen, right? Like, you guys are trying to do camps when the enemies have no downside. Then you use all of your resources on the camp. This person 0 mana, this person almost no mana, this person out of health. You just used all of your cooldowns on a camp. Well, guess what? They still have all of their cooldowns available. He still has his stun. Jaina's using her blizzard to get you guys off the point. Do you kind of see how, like, you keep trying to force camps in areas you don't need to? You don't need to, like, overcommit on this map. You try to get camps on maps where, like, the enemies can't fight you over it, then you get your camp at the right time, they get their camp at the wrong time, and you win. The problem is when you try to get neutral camps while the enemies have nothing better to do on this map, you're just going to waste all your resources, and then they're going to take a fight where you guys are all down resources. Honestly, really amazed you guys didn't get punished for it. And then V-ping. Try to get people back when they're really low health. One retreat ping almost never works for me. I always spam ping. And I know some people complain about it, but I find people in the middle of fights can never see one flag that pops up. But if they see like 5, it's like, oh, okay, I see now. Yep, kill the little guys first. They never respawn minions until they're actually a camp that's on your team. And Hearthing is probably the best here. Just know that you're going to get to the objective a little late, which is why it's sometimes better to like start the camp a lot earlier than the thing. Yeah, it's really good. So, to be honest, you should be a little bit higher on your Puncturing Arrow. Normally by the second objective, I'm sitting at about 17 or 18 on Puncturing Arrow, just to give you kind of an idea of an area that you should be looking at. Sometimes if I get lucky, I'll even hit 20 with it. Because, I mean, think about it this way. If you're sitting in lane for 3 minutes, which is the time in between the first objective and the second objective, you're sitting in lane for 3 minutes. Your Q has a 10-second cooldown. That means you should get 6 stacks flat every minute, or 18 stacks in that 3 minutes. Plus, you can double those stacks. So you can get up to 36 stacks over the course of that time. And that's not even counting the fact that, like, you're still going to have that time that you hit level 4 and you can fight over and get 4 or 5 stacks. So it's like there's a lot that you can get over those times. Like, you just, every time the enemy tank steps up, QEQ. Every time the tank steps up, QEQ. And you just keep doing it. The longer you wait in between your reset, the longer you're waiting for cooldowns that are off now. Do you see how your vault's going to come back first? So you want to try to QEQ very, very quickly so that when you have your Q back up, you're going to be able to QEQ again without needing to just wait for your Q to come back off cooldown. That's the real Nova. Nice. I go strafe in this build a lot of times unless we really need something to interrupt. In this case, I don't think there's anything that you really need to interrupt. My reason why I like strafe in this build is because you can QEQ and then you have nothing that you can do for a while, so you might as well strafe. Auto attacking is not bad once you get Manticore, but until you have Manticore, also try not to get stunned. Because stuff like this will happen. He'll just charge it. Yeah, so you want to use your abilities first before you use strafe, or else your abilities are just useless the whole time that you're strafing. You want your cooldowns to be rolling, so you could walk up, instead of using strafe on this person, you could have QEQ and then strafed as, like, in the same direction that he was running away. You would have ended up with 2 more stacks, and you would have done a lot more damage. And strafe lasts for how long? 4 seconds, so you could be having your cooldowns going, and then you might even have your stuff up by the time strafe ends. I mean, not completely up, but if you QEQ and then while your stuff's on cooldown, you realize that there's a good strafe moment. Also, if you're going to kill any minions, you kill the big guy that's summoning more minions. You could leave all the little things there if you want to. Unless you're like really close to a talent tier and you need that experience. You kill the big guy just so he can't just take everything from you guys. QEQ. Usually if you have a Joanna on your in your games, for this particular map, you want the Joanna to blind everyone, and constantly be like trying to disrupt them, so that you can, like, you and Greymane can race while the rest of your team is just disrupting them. It's pretty safe for a Joanna to disrupt them. Even a Lily could get away with it a little bit as long as the enemies don't have a lot of CC, and honestly, they don't really have any CC. They have like a stun here and a root here, and outside of that, they've got nothing. I don't know what Greymane's doing. I think he was not paying attention at all. Lag, yeah. Yep, as long as you don't get, oh, that's a little unfortunate. Try to always, like, be on the edge of your strafe when you're using it. So, let's say, for example, you are, let me just press E right here. Let's say the enemies are right here, and you're walking in, like right here. Don't be next to Murden when you use your strafe. Try to be over here, right? So the radius of strafe is like this, okay? You always want to try to make it to where they're right on the edge of it, and it's because you're just so safe out here on the edge. So you always want to be trying to do that. Try to stay on the edge, so that whenever you're say in the middle over here, and the enemies are just right there in the edge, you're going to be just hitting them like this, and you don't need to worry about having any sort of situation where they can just stun you with like a Murden has that talent right there, or even Murden just using Q. The further away you are, the more likely it is for you to dodge things. If you're really close, there's not enough time for you to react and deal with it. Joanna's gonna die. Okay, she has trait. Let's go back to you. And there's your quest done. Wait. Oh, you missed that next Q. You do need to work on your Q a little bit. You miss a lot of Qs, and it's a very easy talent, or it's in a very easy ability to land, because it moves fast and it's got a pretty good width to it. Like your Q has it's a pretty good width. It's not like an Ana Q. It's pretty beefy. Whenever you guys get a couple kills, whenever they're defending, you try to fight them on the camp that they're actually on. You only go for like trade camps when you think that the enemies are going to win a fight, and you know what camp they're going to. You go to the opposite camp. But when you guys just got a kill and they just used a lot of their resources, you guys can go for a fight. But that's fine. It's not a big deal. Looks like they're actually not going for a fight either. They want to try to go to this camp because they're playing safe. So right here is pretty easy for you. Yeah, there's your quest. I don't like that your team's endlessly fighting, and these are the areas where I highly recommend you tell your team to get back. Like, there's no V-pings going out. Right as you went for the camp and the enemies walked away, you should have just gotten the camp, you know? But then you kind of chase with your team, and when you chase with your team, you bait with your team, and then you baited your team in there. And that's why it would have been better to just stick on the camp and then V-ping everyone away and just say, hey, guys, let's get the neutral camp for free, rather than getting in a position where we're going to get hit by a ring. Yeah, like you guys just gave that. Now you guys are V-pinging, but it's so late now, you know? Like, the damage is done. They can steal your camps now. And that's why I feel like the way you guys are losing, like, your mechanics are actually still pretty good. You're playing it really well. Your stutter stepping's really good. Overall, I think everything's fine. The issue is the game decisions. You're making calls for your team to go to camps that are bad, and you didn't get punished for them. But then you chased after enemies when you should have just gotten the camp for free. And then you guys wouldn't have died, and you would have gotten a free camp, you know? You don't need to go as greedy as you are going a lot of times. Like, you can play a little bit more conservatively and still have a lot of value. So this is a great strafe. Now, again, yeah, this is the perfect strafe range right there. And you were waiting for your abilities to come back, so that was really good. Right there would have been a very easy moment to just 100 to 0 that Jaina. You Q her, you E, you Q, you W. Because you could have E'd towards her, Q, W, and then one auto and walked away. And why I say one auto is because your vault is going to get increased damage for every hatred that you have. So an extra 6% damage or whatever. But yeah, she would have died right there if you would have comboed her. Lucio right there is very low. Nice. Great job on that. Just auto attack. Again, so you just made a mistake right there. Q, your E came off cooldown first, so you used your vault, and your Q only had 2 seconds left on it. If you would have waited, you would have had your Q back up, fire off a Q, use an E, use a Q, use a couple autos. He would have been dead and might have even been able to kill that guy too. So, for example, he would have taken an extra 1,000 damage from your Q, plus an extra, it's 1,000 when it first hits, and then it's 330, 330. Or that's actually just racing. So, I mean, an extra 1,000 damage. So he is at 500 health. So you would have been able to kill him by just waiting a second on your Q. So you kind of see how, like, just getting too greedy here cost you guys this camp, which cost you guys a keep, which then might also cost you guys another keep. When, like, literally just playing safe, you would have won this game super easily. Halftime show's about to hit. I would fire off a Q, mount up, go hit a fountain, and then come back. You can ignore this camp, but you will need to kill those katas. Or it looks like Joanna's got the katas. You need to race. Or at least, okay, so it's offensive, so you guys need to just defend. Whenever it's offensive like this, everyone who is defensive heroes should defend, while you guys should clean up. All the offensive heroes should clean up everything and then wait for a stalemate. Try to force a stalemate until everyone hits 16s. Kill camps and catapults first. You don't need to worry about the minions. It's okay if the minions are pushing. You guys are too far from a talent tier anyways. You guys are also just letting them race for free. Like, you don't need everyone to clear, just you or Greymane. And call it out in chat. This is a full combo. Again, QEQ R. You guys kill everyone that's in there. The other thing is that if you don't use Gloom very much and you're not great at using Gloom, don't use Gloom. Just grab the siphoning arrow. You do about 1,000 damage, so you're going to heal yourself about 750 every time you fire off a Q. So use siphoning arrow. If you're not great at Gloom, if you don't know when to use it, just don't even use it. Don't even take the talent. Activatables, there's this whole argument about how activatables have really low win rates, and people think that that's because most activatables are just bad. It's not bad. It's that if people forget to use them, it's like you didn't take a talent at all. I actually don't even know who I would pick Gloom into against their team. Like, I pick Gloom when they have, like, a lot of, like, mage damage that I just need to pop it just to survive. It's not even the split, really. It's just the fact that you guys put yourself into an impossible situation, having to deal with camps everywhere. Right here, you guys are going to need to be willing to give up a keep because they're up a level. And so you need to just try to clear this safely, but you need to be willing to give up a keep. And you need to tell your team that. I would be typing, give keep, but try to break immortal shield. Don't die for it. We want a 5v5 under core, right? Because the core does a lot of damage and it's AoE damage, and it's very easy to have this clear up most of it. But what's going to end up happening is you guys are going to get you're going to get killed right here. Because, again, half of you are using resources to kill the immortal, and half of you are using resources to kill the enemies. What's happening is because half of you are using resources on the enemies, you're not doing enough damage to the enemies, that Lucio is just going to out-heal your damage. And the other half are doing stuff to the immortal, but because it's only half, it's not going to break the shield fast enough. And because you're not breaking the shield fast enough and you're not dealing enough damage to the enemies, nothing's getting done. That would be like the only time you pop Gloom, honestly. But you could just dodge it anyways. Against their team, I really wouldn't use Gloom at all. I don't even know what this Jaina build is. No, that's rough. I think you also need to focus your abilities a bit more on one target. There's a lot of targets that all of these targets you've done damage to. If you would have just focused on one, you could kill that one in either direction. But you spread out your damage a lot. Otherwise, though, I mean, honestly, like, your stutter stepping's really good. It's just decision making. Learn from these games to know when this risk was worth it. Learn from these games to know when you should be overcommitting to fights or undercommitting to fights. But otherwise, I'm going to tell you right now, your mechanics are pretty good. Just try to land your Qs a bit more. But other than that, like, it just came down to game decision. And you were pretty good. There's whenever you do get ahead, always try to get something extra. But whenever you guys are on an even playing field, if you try to get something extra, you're going to get killed. So keep that in mind because this was a pretty good game. If you have any other questions, just let me know.